Hello everyone, welcome to this talk on factoring of polynomials given by arithmetic branching programs. I am Amit Sinababu. This is joint work with Thomas Tierhoff from Allen University. I start with the main question of interest. Suppose f is a polynomial of degree d, has size s in some model. F can be uniquely written as product of distinct irreducible factors, and we want to know whether all the factors have size polynomial in S and D in the same model. Why is this question interesting in complexity theory? So Cabanets and Impagliazzo gave the following hardness versus randomness result, and their proof used factor size upper bound of arithmetic circuits. So they proved if we have exponential lower bound for arithmetic circuits, then we get quasi-polynomial black box deterministic polynomial identity testing for arithmetic circuits. And if we want to prove similar results for other models like arithmetic formulas or branching programs, then all we have to do is to prove factor size upper bounds for those models. So now I discuss factor size upper bounds known in various models. First, note that factors can be larger in size. For example, take x to the d minus 1. If we define size as the number of non-zero monomials, then this polynomial has size 2, but it has a factor that has size d. In 80s, Kaltofen proved this classic result. If we measure size as the size of arithmetic circuits, then all the factors of arithmetic circuits have size bounded by some polynomial in the size of the input circuit and degree of the input polynomial. But Kaltofen's proof does not work for restricted models like arithmetic formulas or constant depth circuits or arithmetic branching programs. So a natural goal is to extend Kaltofen's result for these models. In this direction, Oliveira in 2015 proved polynomial in S factor size bounds, but he assumed the maximum degree of each variable in this polynomial is bounded by some small constant. In 2018, Datta, Saxena and Sinababu proved the following bound for formulas or algebraic branching program factors. So they gave proved that size of the factor is bounded by some polynomial in size of the input polynomial f and d to the power order log d, where d is the degree of the factor. So this is a quasi-polynomial bound, and in this work we improved this bound to polynomial bound for the model of arithmetic branching programs. So if p z1 to zn is a polynomial given as an ABP of size s, then we are over a field of characteristic 0, then we show that for all factors of p, we have ABP size of the factor bounded by polynomial in S. So I briefly introduced the main model of interest in this talk, that is arithmetic branching programs, abbreviated as ABP. So it's a model intermediate in power between arithmetic formulas and arithmetic circuits. And arithmetic branching programs, they have the power to compute determinants. So this is a classic result that shows that determinant of a symbolic matrix that has entries as variables x, I, j at the I, j entry, and this n cross n matrix determinant can be computed by an ABP of size poly n. And we use this result in our proof. And in contrast, we do not know poly n size arithmetic formulas for computing determinant. And essentially, this is the reason why our proof does not extend to arithmetic formulas. So I define ABP via this picture. So ABPs are directed acyclic graphs where we have a source node denoted as S and a sink node denoted as T. It's a layered graph. From one layer to the next layer, we have directed edges labeled by variables or linear polynomials. And from a source to sink, there is a path. There are multiple paths. And if we take one path and multiply all the polynomials labeling the various edges in that path, we get a polynomial corresponding to that path. And if we take sum over all the paths, then we get the polynomial computed by this ABP. And the size of this ABP is defined as the total number of edges in this ABP. And we can show that the degree of the polynomial computed by size S ABP is bounded by S. Now I briefly discuss the prior proof technique uh, of Oliveira and Datta, Saxon and Sinababu for these restricted models. So they reduced factoring to power series root approximation. So this connection can be seen from this basic theorem, factor theorem. So y minus g x1 to xn is a factor of the polynomial f x1 to xn y if g is a root of the polynomial f. So we can compute factors of the form y minus g x1 to xn by computing roots of the polynomial f. And for root approximation, there is this classic technique of Newton iteration. We iteratively use it, starting from y0, which is g at 0, and then uh, from yt, we compute yt plus 1 using this formula. We add or subtract yt with f evaluated at yt divided by the derivative of f with respect to y evaluated at yt. Now, we can use this formula to give an inductive construction to approximate the root. So suppose we have a formula or AVP computing yt and we want to compute yt plus 1 using this formula. Because computations cannot be reused in formulas or AVPs, we have to make d many copies of yt to compute yt plus 1. And as we use Newton iteration for say log d many rounds, overall size of blow up becomes d to the power log d. And it's not clear how to improve this uh, bound for AVPs using this root approximation approach. So in this work, instead of lifting roots, we use Hensel lifting that directly lifts the factors. It's a classic tool in multivariate polynomial factoring. And here factorization modulo a suitable ideal I is lifted to a better factorization modulo the square of this ideal. Prior work of Kopertry, Saraf and Spilka, they used Hensel lifting, a version of Hensel lifting, but that gives quasi-polynomial blow-up for AVPs. To get better bound for AVPs, we use the most simple version of Hensel lifting, and we saw that that works. Now I come to the proof structure of our result. So first we handle a special case when the given polynomial p is power of some irreducible polynomial, and that can be computed simply by say if p is q to the power e, then we compute p to the power 1 by e. And it's a simple application of binomial theorem. That leads us to the general case when p is product of different irreducible factors. For this case, we use Hensel lifting, and we focus on bounding AVP size of one particular factor P1. The same approach works for any factor Pi. And we give a sort of non-constructive proof, but one can give a randomized polynomial time algorithm to compute factors as well. So first we do some pre-processing steps. We do some transformations on the input polynomial P Z1 to Zn. And in each of these transformations, we preserve the irreducible factor P1. We transform the polynomial P to a new polynomial F in two new variables X and Y. And this new polynomial is monic in X. By monic, we mean the coefficient of highest power of X is 1. And in the end, we apply reverse transformations to one particular factor g of f to get back the original factor we wanted to compute, that is P1. Now I give some basic ideas of these pre-processing steps. So if the factor P1 has multiplicity E1 greater than or equal to 2, then instead of factoring the original polynomial P, we factorize the E1 minus 1's derivative of P. Here, in this polynomial, P1 has multiplicity 1. Essentially, for Hensel lifting, we have to start from two O-prime factors. So we need this step for that reason. And we also need our factors to be monic in one variable. And for that, we transform this input polynomial to a monic polynomial because factors of a monic polynomial are monic. And this is a standard trick by applying a linear transformation on the variables. In a later step for factor reconstruction, for general n-variate degree d, we may have to check n plus d choose d many coefficients, and this is not efficient. So we use the idea of Kopertry, Saraf, and Spilka to reduce to the case of bivariates into variables x and y. And now we switch to a bigger field or ring generated by the other variables z1 to zn. So how is this reduced to bivariates? So suppose p x comma z1 to zn is the given polynomial. We create a new polynomial p hat by replacing these variables z1 to zn by yz1 to yzn. So it's easy to see that this preserves the irreducible factors of the original polynomial. And we see this new polynomial p hat as a bivariate polynomial in x and y with coefficients in the ring z1 to zn. And to get back p from p hat, it's simple. We just put y to 1 in p hat. Also observe that if we put y to 0 in p hat, because all these variables z1 to zn, they are multiplied by y, then all of these variables will be killed and we'll be getting an univariate polynomial p hat x. So after doing all this pre-processing, we have a bivariate polynomial f x comma y, and say it has two factors g and h, where g is irreducible and co-prime to h, and f, g, and h are monic in x. Now we do Hensel lifting modulo powers of an ideal. So that is generated by the variable y and denoted as I0. So in step 1, we factorize f modulo y. So that going modulo y essentially means putting 0 to y. So that is same as factoring the univariate polynomial f x comma 0, and we get two factors g0x and h0x. And without loss of generality, we can assume g0 is a divisor or a factor of g modulo y, and it is co-prime to the other factor h0. So by extended Euclid, because G0 and H0 are co-prime, we get two univariate polynomials A0 and B0 such that A0 G0 plus B0 H0 equals to 1 modulo I0. And we start Hensel lifting with this factorization. So now I come to Hensel lifting. So I give the definition in a slightly more general setting where R is a general commutative ring and I is an arbitrary ideal. But for us, we can think of R as the ring generated by the bivariate polynomials. And I we can see as a power of y. So if f equals to gh mod I, and if g and h, they are co-prime in the sense there exist a and b such that ag plus bh equals to 1 mod I, then g prime comma h prime is called lift of g and h. If f equals to g prime h prime modulo I square, and if g prime equals to g modulo I and h prime equals to h modulo I, and also if it maintains the pseudo coprimality, if there exists a prime b prime in the ring such that a prime g prime plus b prime h prime equals to 1 modulo I square. So Hensel lifting lemma says that if g and h satisfy the conditions for lift, then there exists g prime h prime, which is a lift of g and h. And there is also an uniqueness guarantee. If we have any other lift, G star and H star, then there exists U in the ideal such that G star equals to G prime times 1 plus U modulo I square, and H star equals to H prime equals times 1 minus U modulo I square. So the proof of this Hensel lifting lemma is constructive. We can explicitly compute by formulas the next lift. First, we compute the difference of f and the previous product of the previous lift, f minus gh. Then the next lift, g prime and h prime, we get by simply we add g plus b times e, and h prime equals to h plus a times e. And as ag plus bh was 1 modulo I, so we will, it's a simple calculation to show that f equals to g prime times h prime modulo I square. And the next rounds, A prime and B prime also we can compute using these simple formulas. So now we see the complexity of Hensel lifting, implementing Hensel lifting for models like branching programs or formulas. So suppose we have branching programs computing these polynomials F, G, H, A, and B. So we can observe from these four formulas that to compute the next lift, we have to, like this G prime, H prime, A prime, and B prime, we need only constantly many copies, say 5 or 7 copies of the previous lift. And this Hensel lifting will be done for log d many rounds. So ultimate overall total size blow up for this would be polynomial in c to the power log d and s. So overall size would remain poly in S. There is a version of Hensel lifting where in each round we get the polynomials monic in some variable. So assume that f, g, and h, they are all monic in x. Then we can additionally compute polynomials q and r such that so first we subtract this lift we computed previously, g prime minus g, and then we divided it by g to compute quotient and remainder. So we can see that if g is monic, and then this remainder has x degree less than the degree of g. So g prime. So if we compute g hat by adding g with this remainder, then g hat would remain as a monic polynomial. Its degree in x will not increase. And similarly, we can also compute h hat, and they will give a monic lift of g and h. The advantage of this lift is it gives an unique lift and it does not increase the degree of x. But implementing this version for ABPs is costly, essentially for this extra division by g. So we have to make d square many copies of previous computations in each round. So cannot use this version for our purpose. So we iteratively apply Hensel lifting to G0 and H0 modulo powers of I0. And at th round of Hensel lifting, we will be working modulo ideal generated by 2 to the power th power of y. And we'll be getting two polynomials gt and ht such that f equals to gt times ht modulo it. And we stop the lifting when we reach 2 to the power t greater than equals to 2d square plus 1. So roughly for log d many rounds, we do this lifting. Now, when we get this lifted factor at the th round, gt, it might not be equal to the factor we wanted to compute g, but still they have a very nice relation. So this is a well-known relation between the actual factor and well lifted factor. So if gt is the lifted factor, then g equals to gt times h prime t for some polynomial h prime t modulo it. And the proof idea of this is to apply inductively Hensel lifting to both this polynomial f and the factor g. So we know that f equals to g0 h0 mod I0, and as g0 is a divisor of g modulo I0, so we get g equals to g0 h0 prime mod I0. So we can do simultaneously Hensel lifting to both these polynomials, and but this is a non-constructive proof. We will not get h prime t explicitly. So if we know gt, we still do not know how to compute g. So we want to compute g from this equation, g equals to gt h prime t modulo it. And here gt is known, but both g and h prime t are unknown. But we know degree upper bounds of all these three polynomials, g, gt, and h prime t. We can simply compare the coefficients of each monomial x to the power I, y to the power j in left hand side and right hand side of this equation. And then we can get a system of linear equations in the unknowns that are coefficients of g and h prime t. Now, this linear system, it can have multiple solutions. So obviously the actual factor g is one solution of this linear system. But suppose we get a solution g tilde, and can we say that this g tilde would be equal to the factor that we wanted to compute? And the answer is yes, if g tilde is the least degree monic polynomial that satisfies this relationship or this linear system. So g tilde equals to gt times h tilde modulo it for some h tilde, and we'll ultimately prove that g tilde has to be equal to g. So this follows a standard approach. First, prove that g tilde and the factor g have non-trivial GCD. Then, as factor g is irreducible, we immediately get that g divides g tilde. Now, as both g tilde and g are monic polynomials of same degree, that means they must be equal. So this now, this proof boils down to proving that g tilde and factor g have non-trivial GCD. So how to show that two polynomials have non-trivial GCD? So the classic tool of resultants helps here. So this resultant Ry, so resultant with respect to x of g and g tilde, it's a polynomial only in y, so it's x free. It can be defined via determinant of Sylvester matrix. and we know the degree bound of the resultant, it is less than equal to 2d square. So here is the property of resultant that we will use. So resultant with respect to x of g and g tilde is 0 if and only g and g tilde share non-trivial GCD. So GCD is not equal to 1. There is the x degree in the GCD is greater than 0. Now, so what remains to prove is the resultant. We want to show g and g tilde have non-trivial GCD, so that reduces to proving their resultant is equals to 0. So another basic property of resultant that is that it can be expressed as the linear combination like Bijut's identity. So there exist polynomials u and v such that resultant would be equal to ug plus v g tilde. And in this expression, we plug in g equals to gt h prime t modulo it that we know. And we also know that g tilde equals to gt times h tilde modulo it. So we will be getting resultant equal to gt times u h prime t plus v h tilde modulo it. And let w denote this polynomial u h prime t plus v h tilde. So we have resultant equals to gt times w mod this ideal it. So now we want to prove that the resultant is 0 and assume for the sake of contradiction that resultant is non-zero. So, and further assume that gt is monic in x and w is a non-zero polynomial. So it's easy to see then that the coefficient of highest power of x in gtw modulo it would be non-zero. But on the other hand, resultant with respect to x, it's a polynomial only in y, it's free of x. So left hand side is free of x, but right hand side has x, so that gives contradiction. So resultant must be 0 modulo it. But in our case, the lifted factor gt can be non-monic as well. So the coefficient of highest power of x in gt can be a multiple of y. So the highest power of x in gt and in the product of gt and w, it may vanish modulo power of y. And so the question is, can we still save this argument? So a simple idea saves this argument. Instead of looking at the highest power with respect to x, we look at the least power of y in both w and gt. So view gt and w as polynomials in y with coefficients in x. Suppose gt equals to c0x plus c1x times y plus dot dot dot. Now, because gt is a lift of g0, gt must be equal to g0 modulo y. So c0x simply is g0x, and we know that g0x is a non-zero polynomial in x. And if in the least power of y, the coefficient with respect to least power of y in w is wjx, then their product gt times w, the least power of y that has coefficient g0x times wjx. Wjx can be x free, but g0x is not. And the coefficient this polynomial has, it is a non-zero polynomial in x, and because it is attached with the least power of y, it cannot be cancelled by other powers of y in this polynomial gt times w. So we'll be getting that gt times w is not free of x modulo it if this resultant, if we assume it to be non-zero. So resultant must be 0 modulo it. Now we know the degree bound of the resultant, and if we pick a suitably higher degree precision so that it exceeds that degree bound, then we'll be getting resultant absolutely 0. So that completes the proof. Now I wrap off with the size analysis. So in the beginning of Hensel lifting, we started with 2 univariate factors, and that has that has small ABPs. And in each step of the lifting, we were making constantly many copies of previous lifts. So overall size blow up is polynomial in c to the power log d for some constant c, and it's poly in s. And the factor reconstruction step, it boils down to solving a linear system of the form mv equals to 0 for a matrix M with entries that are polynomials computed by small ABPs. And that a lemma from Koperty-Saff and Spilka solves it using Cramer's rule, and ultimately it boils down to computing a determinant that has polynomial size ABP. So what are the open questions? So the most important open question is the proving poly S size, factor size bound for arithmetic formulas. And our result does not extend to formulas because in the last step of the factor reconstruction, we are computing determinants and we do not know if determinants have polysize formulas. And another open question is to compute factors of low depth circuits, keeping the depth low. And also to give non-trivial factor size bounds for read-once oblivious branching programs. This is a special restricted model of algebraic branching programs for which our proof does not extend. And thanks for your attention.